Hello and welcome to the Happy Hour Hustle podcast with our host, Kim Bode.
I am absolutely thrilled to be chatting with you.
Principal and fearless leader of 834 Integrated Communications. On this podcast, you're going to learn a lot about a lot, like public relations, marketing, digital, and advertising.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Forgive us if you hear some dogs in the background. We love them, and there's a medium-sized pack at the office at all times.
Fantastic.
So grab a glass of wine, preferably one with ice in it, and learn a little something today. So, as many of you may already be aware, we've moved. Not too far away, though. We're now residing in the heart of Creston in the north quarter of Grand Rapids. That being said, Kim has a lot of history with this neighborhood, and we thought it might be fun to do a little Q&A with her on all things Creston as it meets 834.
Ooh, I'm so excited.
Yay! So, Kim, to start off, what is your personal history with this neighborhood, and when did you first set down roots here?
Ooh, that's a good question. Probably not going to give you a year. That'll age me. Creston is where I bought my first home, and the address was 834. You can drive by. It's 834 Arlington. I don't live there anymore, so don't frighten the people that live there. So a little tiny, like, story-and-a-half house. It's where I had my dogs Bentley and Murphy. But yeah, that's where I remember driving around trying to find a place because I had gotten my first job. I was working at GVSU. I lived in Allendale, so I was in the big city. This was a big deal for me. So I remember driving around trying to find a house. I did all of this on my own, and I didn't really understand the areas. And I remember going through Creston thinking, like, this is such a cute area. Story short, I obviously purchased the home, and I moved in, and I lived in Creston. And I started 834 out of that house, and I knew that I wanted 834 to not to be named after me, but to still symbolize something that was really important to me. And I grew up very blue collar. My dad worked at GM for 30 years, so buying a house was a really, really big accomplishment. Yeah, I lived there, and I started 834, and then, things went, I don't know if that's your follow-up question, but you can read the story on our website, 834.com, but things did take a very dark turn, where there was essentially I was married, and then, well, he was a cheater, and so long story short, I keep saying long story short, and then I just keep making the story longer. You guys are all welcome that are listening. But I ended up losing 834. I then had to, figure out what my next steps were going to be. And interestingly enough, I lived in 2 additional houses in Creston. I rented the next one after 834, and then we purchased a little house off of Buffalo, which is very close to where our office is now, like could walk there. And we completely flipped the house and renovated it, and I adored the neighborhood. We just recently, within the last few years, moved out, and it was simply because we have 6 dogs.
That's a lot of dogs, it's
a few.
It's
7 actually. When we moved out there, we had 7.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So really the 834 origin story is a story set in the Creston neighborhood. So you have long, deep-seated roots here, and this purchase of this building, like, what has this meant to you in regards to where the business has been, the ups, the downs, the, like, solidifying yourself?
It kind of feels like we're coming full circle. I lost, obviously, the 834. We did, our last office was technically in Creston, not kind of in the heart of Creston like our building is now, but I knew I eventually wanted to own here. And from EOS and our Vision Traction Organizer, VTO, that was not actually something we were going to look at till 2022. But this building I've driven by this building so many times, probably mostly because I went to the Creston Market, which sells some very good wine frequently. It's now next door, so that's a bit dangerous.
They're our besties.
They really are. So being able to actually, I remember just driving by this building thinking that is such a cool building. It's just so cool. And then, being told by the person we were working with, shout out to Northtown Realty, that this was up for sale. And then, this is such a growing area, and I don't think people realize it. Creston is actually the largest neighborhood in Grand Rapids. We have over 27,000 residents. We're bigger than the West Side. We're bigger than Easttown. And I just don't think people realize what the full boundaries of this area are. There's the Creston Business District. There's the Cheshire Business District. We have a very active neighborhood association. There's the Creston Business Association, which is phenomenal. And then a lot of things are going on because of Lions and Rabbits. Hannah Berry owns that and has done a ton of arts within the area, and it's just been awesome to see. And I remember when I moved in, there was literally King Ma's, And I don't even think, no, Graydon's didn't even exist at the time. So there was Kingma's and the bowling alley. Yeah.
I mean, and on top of all of that, we have like 7 beautiful parks in Creston,
Right.
and it's like the neighborhood is so much bigger than you would ever imagine, and there's so much to explore here. So, like, I mean, as an employee, I'm very excited to be
Well,
here,
and
too.
you live right down the road, too.
Yeah.
We won't give anybody your exact address
That's
so
okay.
they can't stalk you. But it was funny because when I lived at, you know, when my first home here, 834, I was right, I could walk to Huff and I could walk to Aberdeen. And, you know, we've got Riverside and we've got, you know, there's all these other
yeah.
parks. And I don't think people realize how much green space we have here. There's an awesome neighborhood pool. So, you know, people, oh, and they just did their dog event there, which I'm so, well, we know my dogs would have terrorized everybody. So what would have been the point? So Sarge would have been trying to bite everybody. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, I mean, now that you've kind of gone through like the history, what this really means to you, I mean, what's next? Like, what are the big plans now that we're settled into this new building and for like the neighborhood and the betterment of the business district here?
We're gonna throw a party, obviously.
Immediately.
Obviously. I would say, kind of going back to when I said coming back full circle, I knew I always wanted to be in this neighborhood, whether I was living and working here or just working here. And I wanted to make sure I gave back to an area that, quite frankly, gave so much to me. I can still remember my first neighbors. I remember our neighbor when we lived on Union. I remember our neighbors when we lived on Buffalo. And to see like everybody kind of runs into each other, and it really is like, I don't know how to describe it. It's every neighborhood has kind of their own distinct personality in Grand Rapids, which I think is one of the really cool things that sets our city apart. And I think that Creston is really like, it's very artistic. There's a lot of young people, but there's also a lot of people that have lived here for forever. You know, off of when I lived on Arlington, there was a lot of, you know, families that had been in those homes for, you know, they're raised their kids there.
30,
We're
40
still
years,
there.
yeah.
And you know what I love is people buy and they stay. And you don't see that a lot anymore. You see people like, this is my starter home. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to, you know, move out and buy like a McMansion. But you don't see that in Creston. People stay here. And I think that's why it was so important for me to get back here and to truly, truly own and to be able to give back as a business owner. And I have a lot of respect for Sun Title because they came in. I remember when they came into the neighborhood and they started doing, you know, they renovated that whole, basically their building, you know, which is across from us is like almost 3 city blocks or something.
It's like massive. Yeah.
And they actually own the building that we're in now, and we purchased it from them. And they are very dedicated to this area, and I remember talking to you know, the owners, and they said they really wanted to see, you know, another small business here, an owner operator, because they wanted to make sure whoever was going to come into this neighborhood was going to give back. And to me, that's huge because we all have to work together, you know, with whether that's on things that like you don't even think about until you're walking down the street and you're like, wow, there's trees hanging over the sidewalk. Who takes care of that? Well, that's what the North Corridor is for.
Everything has a plan, and it's not just there for looks or just to be there. You know, putting in trash cans along the sidewalk so we're not littering in our neighborhood. It all goes back to what we can give back to the neighborhood and how we can help them thrive and grow, and hopefully more people will want to be here.
And I really do hope, like, you know, if you're a business in this neighborhood or you live in this area, you know, even giving just a little bit to whether it's the neighborhood association or whether it's the business association or whether it's the North Corridor, because the thing is they all do work together, and they all, like, you know, they're in the process of launching a website, which we'll tell you about as it gets closer, but they're all partnering together to make this an area where everyone wants to live, work, and play, and we're just trying to do our part. We'll throw parties. We're going to do a fundraiser where, you know, we'll have a specialty cocktail, and, you know, whatever, if you purchase that money's going to go back to, you know, the businesses and the neighbors and the neighborhood.
I think the Instagram account Best in Creston is a good place for people to start just to see what's going on, and then from there they'll be posting updates of how you can follow along with us as well. But I guess there you have it, folks. 834 has a permanent home here in Grand Rapids, specifically in this Creston neighborhood, and we have some big ideas and plans to put our stamp on it. And as you may have heard before, our motto is "It's about you," and that goes for the residents and the businesses living, working, and thriving here in our little corner of Grand Rapids. So yeah, until next time, hustlers.
See you on the download.